I think the third benefit, which really isn't captured in the report, is that previously, under the old motorcycle bays across the city, motorcyclists did not have the luxury of having those bays to themselves. If a motorist chose to park in those bays, they were a single yellow line. They were not protected for motorcyclists. And one of the benefits we've provided here, I'm afraid it is true, sir. One of the benefits we provided here is that those bays are now formal parking places and are protected at two levels. In the central zone, we protect them 24/7. In the outer zones, we protect them during controlled hours. The reasons for that were that there was a perceived, sorry, it's the other way around. The reason for that is that the residence areas in the outer zones, we felt we should protect them for the residents' use in 24/7, but in the central zone, the bays are generally empty during the weekend period. I would like to, just referring back to the committee to give some more context, the Council's Unitary Development Plan, adopted in January 2007, makes specific reference to a policy of control and restraint in terms of the use of the space, because there are competing demands for that space. And it does propose that we introduce charging for motorcyclists at an appropriate level, with the objective also of pushing motorcyclists into off-street secure parking places.
Thank you, Kevin. What I think I'd like to do is go round the table in this order. Ruth, do you have a question?
Well, I actually have a lot to say and ask.
If you can remember that this is a time-limited discussion, I'd be grateful.
I'll do my best as long as we cover things. As far as the charging is concerned, the cost of provision seems to me to be easily met. You're not counting the PCN costs, and those remained the same throughout. They peaked when the charges came in, but the calculations that we've done means that you're getting in $1 million a year for that. I cannot see why those that plus normal expenditure can't cover the basic costs. If you're not getting security take-up, I suspect there wasn't the demand for it, and most of the representations that I have received make clear that there wasn't much demand for the security provision, whichever it was. The concentration on Westminster residents is misguided. The whole thing depends on Westminster as what is constantly being spoken of as a global city, as a place where people come, not just live. And that all needed to be taken into account when this was dealt with, and it's been very much disregarded. The idea that you can deal with this without taking account of the congestion and emissions issue. Emissions is a complicated business. Particulates are an issue too. I'm not enough of an expert to go into detail, but the idea that this could be disregarded is a nonsense, and it makes it quite clear that the council is still not getting its head around the need to take the whole environmental issue seriously across all departments. Was this referred to the Go Green Board? It ought to have been. It's a cross-departmental matter. It should have been dealt with as a matter of principle as an environmental issue, quite apart from all the problems around the parking. I'm hoping, will I be able to come back? No. Then in which case I shall carry on. The whole question of 81% using daily permits, it's not the bikers, it's the permits. The issue of the fact that you brought in so much money, you just don't need the charge to continue. It discriminates against people who cannot or don't have a mobile phone charged up, they don't have a card, they don't want to give their details to Westminster Council. Why would they if they come from Northumberland? It makes no sense. It is not true that there are no requirements for motorbikes to continually, or motorbike manufacturers to continually upgrade what they're going to be doing about emissions. There are 2 European directives which apply. I've had a look at them. I don't understand them fully, but they exist and they are applicable to motorbikes. That ought to, this report should not say that motorbikes are exempt from these kinds of provisions. It's not true. It's very bad reputationally for Westminster, and I can't believe that the majority party wants to go down this path. And I just want to come on to the lobby itself. There's plenty more I could say, but the lobby itself, it's really annoying getting all these emails, but it's very, very good that we do. I regard it as an irritating, tiresome privilege. I am sorry I've not replied to them. I'm very grateful to my colleague, Councillor Boothroyd, for having replied to them all, and for the leader of our group to have dealt with them, the leadership very directly. The diversity of bikers has been amazing to see, and the idea that they should be insulted as thugs and hooligans really is offensive. I long ago, as I've said before, was a pillion rider. I never got as brave as to use a bike, but everything from a Harley, a Norton 650, which is what I used to ride on, to Rick Spleen's Pistachio Vespa has been involved in this campaign from right across the country, where tourists come on their bikes, and all of these 1,000, and I've had 1,186 emails. I've read them all, and one of the ones, all of them are privileged to have received, but the one makes me feel really excited is the one from Robin Hood himself, Jonas Armstrong, and he ought to be here tonight and hearing all of this. Thank you.
Rupert, good to see you.
There are two issues of principle, I think, which arise in relation to any sort of proposal of this kind to impose a fee. The first is the environmental issue, which my colleague Ruth has dealt with very eloquently, and the second seems to me is the issue of congestion. And I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that as far as congestion is concerned, encouraging the use and supporting the use of motorcycles helps to address what has been for many years a chronic problem in central London. And that is the rationale. That is the rationale for an exemption to the congestion charge applying to motorcycles. So if you apply that principle, it must logically follow that a similar exemption should also apply in relation to any parking matters. So that's the first point I wish to make. The second is in relation to feedback from our residents. I know that the chairman has been concerned, and I can understand why, to find out of the people who've spoken today how many were residents. But can I first of all ask the officers if how many residents who responded to the survey actually opposed the scheme, and how many supported it? Because my understanding is that no residents who responded actually supported the scheme. Right? Well, whilst you're looking for that statistic, there's a third point, which is, and I don't want this to be any sort of tacit acceptance of the principle of it, but just looking at your calculations, what's being suggested now, as I understand, is a reduction in the parking parking charge from £1.50 to £1. Now, I'm concerned about this because we have at paragraph 11.1 a detailed table of the expenditure and revenue of this scheme to date, and that's from August until we're now almost to the beginning of April, so I calculated something like 7 months. Total expenditure, 319,000. Now, a lot of that expenditure is going to be one-off expenditure. It's the first thing to bear in mind. It's not going to be repeated in the future. The income is 2.08 million, of which just over 1 million is the fee itself, and then 1.4 million relates to PCNs. So, you're right. Yeah, 2.4 million. So we're talking about something in the region of, for the entire year, 5 million. I think it is artificial when you're talking about is this a revenue neutral tax or not, or revenue neutral scheme or not, to ignore PCNs. I mean, PCNs is a revenue which is generated as part of this scheme. I think artificial to think otherwise. Now, you then come back to this proposal to reduce the charge from £1.50 to £1. You've got a massive surplus here, a massive surplus, including one-off costs in this calculations that we have. My calculations, my crude calculations, mean that even if you reduce your income by a third, you're still going to be generating a massive profit. So it's not going to be, even on the revised proposal, a revenue neutral scheme. I can't see how it could be.